Hi everyone, welcome back to Fonte Show with myself, Faustina Anyanwu. Another episode of Fonte Show. As you can see, my topic today is centered on the science, how COVID-19 has exposed science, so-called science, statistics, data, and even what we call facts. You know, somebody will be asking, why will I be talking about this? What relevance does it have for you? Now, as a Black person, as an African person, it is very, very vital that you listen to this topic very carefully. Now, I want you to understand that, first of all, science is an interpretation of, observation and interpretation of nature, or appreciation of nature and events around us. Now, when when one observes the nature or events around us, we interpret them in our own way. Now, these interpretations are now based on your own motive, your intentions. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to do with that interpretation you are given? Another thing you need to know also is that science does not offer definitive answer. Now, having defined this and giving these explanations, I will now go straight into the topic of the day. Let me tell you how science manipulates and how statistics, are not accurate, and facts, the things we call facts and data, are not the truth. As a Black person, like I said earlier, as an African person, this is very important. Listen now. And I want you to walk with me through this pandemic, diary or calendar. When this pandemic started, this COVID-19 started, when the news began to break around January, February, especially middle and towards the end of February, there was so much talk of, why are Black people not being affected? Why are Black people not dying? Why are Black people dead? Scientists asking, are questioning, are puzzled, and that was what was flying all over the media. Then suddenly, UK and America, the COVID-19 arrived in the shores of these two countries, these two nations, where obviously Black people are minorities. And suddenly, what did we hear? We began to hear, oh, Black people are being affected, are disproportionately being affected. Black people are dying. Black men are this, Black men are that. And they continue to back it up with their so-called science. Now, I'm going to come back to that. One thing you need to know is fear does something to our body. Fear can actually kill. Fear can destroy your immunity. Fear can also, cause cardiovascular problems, cause gastrointestinal problems as well. And these are areas where, these are the areas where we have the most vital organs that protect us. So when somebody is engulfed with fear, the person succumbs to whatever is thrown at them. Now, when the COVID-19 arrived in France, the president of France, Macron, said that they are in a state of war. And I think he called it right. It was a war, is a war, and it is still a war. Now, I want to take your mind now to a war situation where guns are being, shot, grenades, ammunition, and stuff like that. Imagine when you send the soldiers in the war front to go and fight with the enemy, and they don't have enough guns, and they don't have enough shields, they don't have enough, equipments to protect themselves, to take cover and stuff like that, what will happen? If you know the answer, please put it in the comment section so that I know that you're following. And I cannot see who is watching because of how the device is. So if you're watching, please say hi so I know that you're here. And if you would like to chip in a word or two, also do let me know. Now, so what is the intention of this so-called science with this proclamation? That is a huge question that people need to begin to ask. Why is science in this Western world? Why are they so interested in dividing and focusing on either black, especially black people? Africa, the other time, Melinda Gates said tens of thousands and millions of Africans will die from COVID-19. And these are the so-called voices of science that, the world is following. Now, when you look in the UK and in America, you'll find that black people are more in the front line. They are more in the front line, and therefore they are more exposed, and they are hit with the largest viral load of this COVID-19. So when they say oh, there might be different strands of this, let me tell you, like I said, science is an expression of opinion, and your common sense is more powerful than any science, any data, anything. Why do I say that? Now, God gave us a common sense. We call it common sense because every human being has a sense of understanding your environment. The difference between science and maybe your common sense is your ability to pay attention to your environment. Now, the black people are in the front line, are in the hospitals, are in the bus drivers, are all these front lines are in the shops. They are the shopkeepers. Now, when we have these people in the front line, and we have been following this sequence of what is going on, how far the government of these environments have been, equipping the front line. Now, most of these people know that they are already stressed out. Most of them are immigrants. Probably they don't even have their papers, or their papers are tied to their work. Therefore, they have to go to work, even when probably fear is gripping them, is weakening them, and they are not able, even, if you give them the choice, they wouldn't want to go to work. Therefore, already their immunity, their body, their system has already been defeated way before the fight even began. So these are very, very important points that we need to keep, in our minds. Now, let's go further now about this science, what you need to know about science. Like I said, data can be manipulative, can be altered for whatever reason. Let me tell you, for example, when we're in school, when you're doing your final year research and all those kind of things, for me, we did kind of data collection because I was in the health, sector and all that. Now, before you even start your research, you already have, you already have a result you are working towards. That means your intention, you already have an intention you want to arrive at. So all you need to do is work towards arriving at that intention. That is what research, that is what science is all about. So you already have a motive. You already have a motive, you already have an intention, something what you want to actualize with your so-called research. Now, why am I so bothered with this? I want to tell you something. Around 1918, when we had the Spanish flu pandemic, millions of people died according to record. Given what we are seeing now, according to records, there were over 50 million people that died. Then, before that time, there was an outbreak of, I think, smallpox, and there was this doctor who was in charge of management of the smallpox when they were bringing some slaves, and he noted in his diary that the African black people who were in the ship, who were being shipped as slaves to the America, were not being affected by the smallpox. Without any further research, any further finding, just that record, it was noted that black people, had a different gene while they are not being, affected. Now, look at the result of this misinformation, which is why it's very important for us to question whatever anybody tells you is science. If it doesn't correspond with your common sense, please, you follow your own common sense, because science is there to observe nature and interpret that nature. And our common sense, whatever interpretation is given, is supposed to correspond with our common sense. Now, let's get to the point now. Now, when this pandemic, this Spanish flu pandemic started in 1918, the doctor who was taking, care or leading the treatment for this management of the pandemic, then 1918 Spanish flu, he got hold of the notes, of the data, of the account that the other doctor kept of his observation. And it was based on this record that he decided and concluded that Africans or black people are not affected, will not be affected by the infection, by the Spanish flu. Therefore, a decision was made to put black people in the front to nurse and treat the affected population without any protections on them. Until today, I still tell you, these notes, that same diary, that same observation of just one individual, that opinion, that interpretation of one individual is still being used to treat black people, especially in the Western world. And unfortunately, even in Africa, because African education has taken curriculum from the Western education. Now, I'm not trying to condemn education. What I'm trying to do is open your mind so that when you are being bombarded or bamboozled with scientific jargons, at the end of the day, you need to know what you want is the simple and direct explanation of what is being said in simple terms, and then you compare these scientific so-called interpretations with your common sense. And if it doesn't correspond, then you begin to question things. Now, why am I stressing on these things? First of all, I want black people, every black person or African, anywhere you are, to begin to question whenever you hear or begin to see headlines like this. You begin to question it. Question it in large numbers. Do not believe that in your little corner, what you're saying doesn't make sense or doesn't make an impact. It does. Let me tell you how. While this pandemic, this COVID-19 was building up and coming, And people were seeing how things were happening. And here in the UK, the government continued to tell us, oh, they are following the science. They are following the science. Then our common sense, myself, my common sense as a mother, my protective instinct began to tell me something is not right. I began to tweet. I began to question, just like so many other people began to question what is happening. Why do we still have our children in school? Now, they began to tell us science said that children were not being affected. I began to ask how, and other people were asking how. They said, oh, children can, when children can catch the infection, but it will not affect them. Then I asked them, when children catch this infection with, let's say, with no symptoms, presumably because they have more, their immunity is probably more intact. Now, but when they catch it, even if they don't have symptoms, are they not able to give it to their parents and grandparents? Perhaps people who are even more vulnerable. They could become the super spreaders, even though they might not have signs and symptoms. So it's important to question this. So we began to question, people began to, worry and pressure the government, and then government began to, look into things. And that was when we began to hear the government say with their science, they intended to, that they were using, their science was using herd immunity strategy, which they said they want they want the infection to run through the population and perhaps kill. Their prediction was to kill 250,000 people, 500,000, quarter of a million, sorry. How tragic. Now, question again, why would somebody easily make this kind of prediction and then use science to back it up? What they have done there is to prepare our minds. Even our prime minister came on the TV. Yes, Prince Hannah just says, whose science, which experiment exactly? Now, they kept telling us they are following a model, and our Prime Minister Boris Johnson came on TV and was telling us to take it on the chin that many people are going to lose their family members before their time. How cold, how cruel. So when people heard this, so many people began to accept their fate and began to relax and all that. But another science, this is where it gets interesting. Now, the scientists in the Imperial College of Medicine began to question this science and model. They began to ask questions. They said, can we please, as scientists, also see this model that you're using so we can, review it? So that we can review the model you are using, and then of course either agree or disagree with your model and the prediction you're coming with, because 250,000 people in a short time to die from just one infection. We're not talking about other diseases. That was when they began to question what was happening. Different sciences, like I said to you, expression of opinion, expression of common sense, expression of your own interpretation of your observation. Now, when they have different voices, they began to, fight over what model to follow. And they said, no, we cannot risk leaving the population when we can do something. Now, let me take you back to, I don't really want to make it a religious thing or Christian thing, so that people who are not Christians will not say, oh, they're not Christian, blah, blah. But what I'm telling you is this. Nature has a way of controlling things. Now, this thing is written in the Bible. This is, maybe over 2,000 years ago, before Christ even. Now, on Isaiah chapter 26, verse 20, it says, go home, my people, and lock your doors. Hide yourselves for a little while until the Lord's anger has passed. Now, when they prescribe lockdown, or prescribe quarantine, or prescribe isolation or isolate. If you're not somebody who is, who is in tune with nature and how things follow, you would think that is a big, it takes a big man, a big thinking. Way before the government and their science decided to even lock down, we have already taken the decision to cancel our event, because we knew that natural sense, a common sense tells you that if one person, if there's fire here ravaging and coming, all you need to do is remove, create a space here so that it doesn't have to catch the next thing, the next object. Once you remove the object that it will catch, that will catch the fire and make it to continue to spread, it will definitely stop. So that is a primary and natural way of doing something. You don't even need any science. Now, even that science, because we don't know what their intentions are, we don't know what the motives are, decided to allow a deadly infection like this virus to run through the population of millions of people. And they are saying they want about that 250,000 people will die, as if they know that, or as if they have reached an agreement with the virus that once you kill up to 250 people, you can switch off. Now, look at the science again. As at 20th March, when 20th March, there were 79 recorded deaths from COVID-19 in the UK. And the science, we are still debating whether to lock down or not. Now, on the 23rd, there were 102 deaths, and the science decided to lock down. Now, today, we had 627 deaths. And in UK, in general, we have over 40,000 deaths within a space of 2 months. And this is the highest number in the UK and one of the worst in the whole world. And they are following science. Now, we have 627 deaths as at today. And the science is advising again, and the government advising people to, to come out, to ease out, to go back into the system, to go back to work. Now, if it was right for us to close down when we had 100 deaths, which in my opinion was wrong, as at the time when we had just one drop of that infection here, once we had evidence that there was person-to-person transmission, there should have been a measure taken immediately. And I tell you, in all over the world, it's still in the UK and probably a few more countries where up until now, people are still flying in from every part of the world without being tested at the airport. And this is science. So again, you begin to question science. That also tells you that, look, your science, what is science, is no more than your common sense. You putting your common sense into work. You opening your mind and your eyes to observe what is happening around you and take the proper action and follow the natural things to do. Now, when they say Black people are dying more, they are trying to push a narrative as if there's a genetic issue with Black people which binds them with this infection. And you can see it also, coming up in China trying to blame Black people for the infection. I was reading something. Somebody said, yes, there are people who are Black, there are people who are so-called white, or myself, I'm not Black, I'm brown. You can see my color is brown. I don't know who is Black. Now, as an African, if you cut my skin open, the inside of my body, I have blood, red blood, just like anybody else. So we are the same species. If we have to use that word, which is for lower animals, we are not animals. I'm not an animal, I have spirit. You know, then you also ask yourself, now this is the same science that came and told us that somebody came from the England to come and discover a river that our great grandfathers and mothers has been fetching water and washing and even maybe soaking their cassava and everything for ages, that he discovered it. This is the same lies and lies and lies we continue to follow. Now, it is very important as people with natural sense. Only thing you need is to pay attention. So I'm calling on Black people all over the world. Pay attention and begin to keep your own record, because in the next 20 years, all these headlines we are seeing now that probably is sending people to people becoming so afraid and scared, or people having different opinions, or people accepting it as their faith and everything. These headlines are going to become the parameter of how our children are going to be treated, because these are the reference that people are going to pick from. Remember the reference I made from 1918 or even before. A single record kept by somebody is what was used to conclude on the treatment a group, a race had to get. Now, in my own household, my children, I made sure they are keeping records of every single thing that is happening each day in their diary, especially about this COVID-19. They follow the news and put down there. Then we discuss. When we make our discussion, they put their own observation and what they think and believe. This is what I'm prescribing for every Black person, because science is only observation of individuals, how individuals have interpreted events and documented it and passed it down, and then we continue to use them as facts. Now, the facts that are being used to manipulate us in everything are people's opinion, which we don't know their motive or intention. I'm not here to say what people's intentions are or what people's motives are, but I'm going to tell you that at every point in time, like myself, I have a motive. My motive is to educate as many Black people as possible to learn how to protect yourself. Protecting yourself is not only by carrying gun, it's not only by physical fight, it's by equipping yourself with knowledge. The word of God says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." Seek wisdom and you will find it. God has given us all, every human being, a common sense. Being common sense doesn't make it cheap. Common sense means that everybody has it. Is common with everybody, but you will have to develop your own by paying attention to your environment, by paying attention, taking notes of what is happening around you, so that you don't give any other person power over your own destiny, over your own life, over what happens to you. With your own record, like after, in fact, even now, as I'm talking to you now, I can bet that many people have forgotten the date we went on lockdown in the UK or even in your own country. Many people have forgotten what was said, how many number of people died from the first day. Talking, let alone 20 years time. In 20 years' time, you will be like, oh, you will not even remember half of the things that happen now. Therefore, whatever record that is kept now is what is going to be used to prescribe whatever treatment you and I will receive. Therefore, it is important that both our own media, both individuals, both communities keep record of what they believe has happened or is happening each day. And, whatever outcomes you're seeing, make your own reference, make your own note, make your own review it, put your opinion and say, this is what I believe should have happened, this is what happened, this is what I believe should have happened. And you have to also record your challenging of some of these headlines being, negative headlines that are being splashed all over the place. Black people this, black people this. This has nothing to do with race. The people dying their deaths have nothing to do with their race. Rather, it has a lot to do with their exposure to this infection. And that is the question nobody is willing to ask. Why are this group of people more exposed to a larger, viral load count of this infection? Why are these people all working in this area? Now, if these people are working in the front line, are they properly protected? For more than a month or so, even up till now, we saw as many, many UK healthcare workers being given just a sling of waterproof, looking like dinner ladies. Something that a dinner lady will wear, to share food, was what our nurses and doctors and healthcare professionals were wearing to attend to viral COVID-19 virus cases. And what does that do? That predisposes them to a larger amount of the viral load, which eventually will overwhelm their system. And these people at the time were being, led to go into their community, back to their families, to spread it where they are. We need to pay more attention and stop accepting what we see or hear. We need to begin to question things. We need to begin to, challenge things. We need to say no. See, all these headlines also are there to frighten us. As a group of people, as a people, remember again how it was said that millions are going to die in Africa. Therefore, if Africa is at the mercy of the scientists who we are talking, by now the whole of Africa will be flooded with a vaccine that's not been tested, and it was the vaccine that was going to kill people. Now look around the world. Look at the population of people in Africa. Now, how many people have died in Africa? What is the death rate? Compare it yourself and tell me, how is it that more Black people are dying? How is it that it has to do with race that Black people are dying? Now tell me, in Nigeria, for example, people are being discharged. People are getting better. People who had COVID-19 are getting better. Therefore, that means there's a remedy there. And we don't need to wait for the so-called science, because nature provided us with substances that we can use to get our body back to work. There are things you can do to build your immunity against infections. There are things you can take, natural products you can take to subdue whatever there is, any allergens or any infirmities in your body. So my aim here is to allow you to think, and when you see such headlines, you question it. And I plead, I urge every single Black person, if you can read and write, keep your own record, write your own doubts, write about your own beliefs. Any headline that you question, write about it and say, you question this and this is why. Keep your own record, so that when our children in 20 or 30 years time, when you are no longer here, they're going to pick up your diary and they will use it as their own reference, and they will use it as their own defense. so that when a prescription is being made for a group of people for whatever reason, they can say, no, this is the record my father kept. This is the record my mother kept. It is contrary to what you're telling me. We cannot continue to allow other people to tell our story, and when we say tell our story, it doesn't necessarily mean only where we came from, where we are going. It's also what is happening around us. Do not leave your children empty-handed. The things, legacy we are leaving for our children is not only money, it's not only house, it's not only property. It's also information, accurate information that will arm them and equip them and embolden them to challenge whatever force comes around them. It's just like, I don't even want to go further, but now I think I've made myself clear that science is just you and your common sense. As this time now, there are lots and lots of misinformation, disinformation going about, flying all over the place. At this kind of point in time, you need to retract yourself and go back to your common sense. Recall your common sense. Call back your instinct. Pay attention to your own instinct and listen to what yourself is telling you. Listen to what yourself is telling you. For me, I was convinced that, see, whether or not the government locks down, I'm not going to open my event, allow people from different parts of the world to come and gather one place, and then they go home and I'll be hearing that people have died after attending my event. I didn't need my conscience, my instinct, my common sense didn't tell me it was right, whether or not the government calls, for lockdown or not. So you have to use this common sense, this knowledge, to protect yourself, protect your family, protect your community. Now, let me tell you again another common sense. Now, if you're walking in a place and you can envisage that there is danger, your life is at risk, I don't think there's any amount of money or job security that will make you want to lose your life. Because if you die, definitely the work is gone. That job is gone. Therefore, it's better for you to quit a job where your life is not valued. Protect your own life. Protect the life of your children. Imagine where you put your life at risk, probably because you want to get more money to pay your mortgage, and at the end of the day you die, leaving probably your 4-year-old or 5-year-old or 6-year-old motherless or fatherless, and nobody to pay the mortgage and the house. What do you think bank would think twice before they will come and repossess the house because you are dead? Now you have caused even more problem for this child. You have not protected your family. You have been selfish. Now the Bible tells us that at this time, at this kind of time, that you should lock up be patient. My dear people, be patient. We can endure. You can endure for one month. You can endure for 2 months. You can lose that job. If you have the skill, you will get another one. Or you can make something of yourself. Do not be sacrificing yourself for nothing. Your life is more valuable than anything. Your life is more valuable than your house, your car, your job, whatever, your money. If you are not alive, those things are meaningless. So the first thing a wise person protects is the life. Because if you have life, you can make those things back. And that is where I ended today with you. I hope that, you've gained something from this. If you have something to, share or say, please leave it on the comment section. If you have anything you want me to touch again, you can always send me a message or, let me know the topics you want me to cover, and we can always share about it. For now, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I can't see everybody who is watching, but please pass this video around. Let as many people as possible to hear this message. Hear this message. Trust in your common sense. Trust in your instinct. Trust in what nature is telling you. Protect yourself. Protect your family. Protect your community by keeping record of your own observations so that your children will have point of reference. That is the simple message that I have for all of us today. Thank you so much.